Hello and welcome to Doubles and Trebles. We're back as a two-man job this week for the weekly and very popular Premier League preview. We're going to be looking at night 14, but as usual, we're looking back quickly at week 13. There's only three left now, and the table is starting to take shape. A couple, I think, have gave up, which we're going to get onto shortly. Pyman, just going straight back, looking at Glasgow week 13. It was like deja vu. Johnny Clayton and Van Gerwen in the final again, and Clayton getting the win in the final to book himself into the final four or the playoff night or whatever you want to call it, finals night. So he's the first man definitely in there. There's three more that look like they're going to be in there as well. So yeah, really starting to take shape now.
Yeah, it certainly is. And as you said, deja vu with Johnny Clayton and Michael Van Gerwen being in that final. And while we've given James Wade a lot of credit for his performances in this Premier League, I think you have to say that these two have been by far and away the best two in terms of just sheer quality. We're almost week on week, even when they go out, it's with a very spirited performance. They don't go out with a whimper, these two. You have to put in a real 10 out of 10 performance to knock either player out. And we've seen that a few times recently with Van Gerwen. He's been on the end of a couple of good performances from his opponents and maybe mismatched starts. But Clayton just continues to be absolutely rock solid. Since week 6, he has made the semi-finals or better. He's won 3. His 4th win overall, of course, and a runner-up in week 12 as well. So it's just phenomenal consistency from the Ferret, really. And very rarely did he look in any trouble on this evening. Anyone who did watch the preview last week when I was me on my lonesome, I was very keen on the Johnny Clayton, Michael Smith final forecast. That was unlucky, to say the least. Michael Smith 5-4 up against Van Gerwen and throwing for the match, conspired to lose 6-5. So that was unfortunate. But credit to Van Gerwen and Smith. It was a fantastic game. Michael Smith was one of the standout performers from last week for me. Really impressive victory over Gerwin Price. Very much a case of one man who wanted it and one man who didn't, to me. And I know you hinted on players potentially giving up there, and I'm sure we could touch on that in a minute. But yeah, I wouldn't be hesitant to say that Gerwin Price looks disinterested in this format now for me. Michael Smith showed signs of life in beating Price and then was brilliant against Van Gerwen, averaging over a ton, but just couldn't quite get over the line. We've said that before about Michael Smith, but I wouldn't really question his character there. I thought it was just a really two players playing really well, high quality affair, and he just come out on the wrong side of it. So nothing to worry about there. Gary Anderson giving Peter Wright a bit of a pasting in the first game. Peter Wright was as poor more than Anderson was good, but Anderson solid and very impressive against Johnny Clayton with his finishing. At least three-figure checkouts in that match in a 6-4 defeat. And just the scoring for Gary Anderson has been what's killed him. And I was looking at the table earlier, and you have to say it, if you're looking for somewhere where he has lost ground on his competitors, 36 180s from Gary Anderson in this tournament. That's compared to 80 from Johnny Clayton, 78 from Michael Van Gerwen. So unfortunately, if you can't bang in those scores week on week, you're just going to get left behind, unfortunately. And he's having to take out those 3-figure finishes just to be competitive. It's kind of what we used to say with James Wade, where, you're a little bit behind in the scoring, it puts pressure on the finishing. Well, Anderson's finishing just hasn't been up to scratch, and that all stems back, I think, from that lack of scoring power. But he did get past Peter Wright, so really nice finishing against Johnny Clayton, but Clayton was just too good overall for him. And yeah, as you say, it's taken shape. Johnny Clayton officially through now, MVG and Wade as good as through. It would take a mathematical miracle for them not to make it, just the way the fixtures are going to lie. But I do think that 4th spot is very much up for grabs, and I think that's still an interesting race. So yeah, plenty to look forward to this week.
Yeah, well, we'll just remind viewers and listeners that Pyman bigged up Anderson's chances in our Week 9 preview. He then lost in the first round, 4 weeks on the spin, making it a total of 7 weeks on the spin. He went out in the first round, and he actually made it to a semi-final last week. But yeah, he's adrift at the bottom. Gary Anderson, I would say, on 9 points with just 3 fixtures
I'm going to declare it. I think Gary Anderson might be out of the Premier League, which pains me to say. I think he might have gone.
Well, I'm used to putting up plenty of losers, Pyman, so don't worry about that. As you alluded to, Michael Smith played well in the first round for the second week running. Gerwin Price, to me, didn't look interested. And I think we've seen hints of it, that this was the first time in one full game, if you like, that. Yeah. I think he's had enough of the crowds, Pyman. Whether and it's an issue that's been around the country, or even around Europe during the Premier League. He's had lots and lots of stick. We obviously think that a lot of it's for going over the top now, going too far. what will be done about it, we don't know. Maybe an issue for to cover on another day. MVG was in the best first round game was MVG versus Cullen. That went to a final leg decider. MVG, the deserved winner there. The expected semi-final results went as expected, if you like. Gary Anderson coming up short against Clayton and Michael Smith coming up short against Van Gerwen, although Michael Smith did play well. It was Clayton's third straight final. MVG's made 4 of the last 6 finals. It is definitely a case of deja vu, as we said at the start, but typical stuff from the pair of them. Clayton getting the job done, plenty of finger pointing towards the camera, and he became the first man to qualify. So that's week 13 in the bag. On to week 14, Pyman. Just 3 regular season weeks left. Starting in Sheffield this week, then you've got the O2 in London, and then Newcastle to finish on. To be honest, I think by the time we get to Newcastle, it could be all done and dusted, because there already is a 5-point gap between Peter Wright and Joe Cullen. If that gets any bigger this week or next, I think it could be a night full of dead rubbers at Newcastle, if you ask me. But Cullen, Price and Anderson will be looking at the table now, or the fixtures, in regards to this week in Sheffield, and thinking that they need wins and they need them quick. But this is an opportunity for them 3 this week, because it's quite simple. MVG and Clayton are in the bottom half together, so they can't both make the final. So there is an opportunity for the likes of Cullen, Anderson and Price in that top half of the draw. They've got Wade to contend with, who's still in hot form, but they might be looking at this one to think, right, if I can get to the final or even win it this week, then I can really put the hammer down for the last 2 weeks and try my best to make it. What did you make of the fixtures when looking at them for week 14, Pyman?
Well, yeah, I touched on it before. I think that battle for 4th is still alive. And the reason I think it's still alive is because, one, you need that person who's in 4th to be vulnerable. And Peter Wright is certainly vulnerable at the moment. He's not been playing well at all. There's only 2 players that haven't made a final in the last 10 weeks. And I'm sure you could guess them. Peter Wright, Gerwin Price. We talk about them every week. They just look out of sorts. They don't look particularly interested in this. Peter Wright obviously got off to that very strong start, which has given him this kind of buffer. But that's just been chipped away at for the last few weeks. And as I say, no final in a long time. He very regularly gets through his first game, but then nothing beyond that. So he is vulnerable. He plays Van Gerwen this week. Would not be surprising at all to see him go out first round there. And that is an opportunity for the players below him to make ground. Now, if we say that Gary Anderson's gone, you're looking at Gerwin Price, Joe Cullen and Michael Smith as these 3 players that could potentially usurp right into that 4th spot. I don't like Gerwin Price's attitude to this tournament, as we've just said before. So I'm happy to take him on. I've seen him posting on social media about more time away from his wife and his kids. I've seen him slagging the format off in recent weeks. I mean, these are all distress signals for me. If you're a Price backer, you wouldn't want to be seeing any of that. A few weeks ago, he was saying, I'll still make the top 4, no problem. But then to come out with these comments afterwards suggests to me that he kind of knows his race is run. He's a bit fed up with it. He's looking forward to it finishing. And, I'm happy to write him off. Now, Michael Smith, I thought it was really promising signs for him last week, but we still have this ongoing issue of is he got to go and win? Because he probably needs to go and win at least one of these last 3 events and maybe make a final, or maybe win 2 of these events. So I'm not sure I have quite faith in him to do that. Joe Cullen could be the wild card. He could be the dark horse, and he's in 5th. He hasn't pulled up any trees for a while. His only win came in Rotterdam, which was quite a memorable one. Played well that night. But generally, if you look at the averages in recent weeks, Cullen's average is the lowest in the entire tournament. He's even behind Gary Anderson in the averages by 3 points. So that tells you that he's actually had to show grinding ability. He's not been blasting people off the board when he plays well. Even when he plays well, he's having to fight. He's having to take these high pressure finishes. That's what you're going to need in these last couple of weeks. You're going to have to grind results out when the pressure's on. And I think that this is a great opportunity for Cullen this week against Wade in that top half. Wade might just be feeling a little bit like he's got there. And let's be honest, unless there's some kind of mathematical miracle, Wade will be at finals night. Cullen can get past him. Gary Anderson or Gerwin Price, I would really fancy him against either of those. So I think this is a Joe Cullen. If he still wants to get to finals night, he's got to make the final here. And I think he'll do it. I really fancy Joe Cullen to get through to the final here. And then from the bottom half, it's you've got the 2 big boys in there as well. I think we could be seeing our usual final at the semi-final stage and then flip a coin from there. But yeah, no, Joe Cullen, the player of interest for me. I don't know what you make of these games.
Cullen's even money to beat James Wade in the first round, and like I said, Simon, that's going to be more difficult for Cullen, you'd have thought, on paper than a potential semi-final. And it would be interesting to see what the prices are in a potential semi-final between Cullen and Anderson or Price, because he wouldn't be a runaway favourite with either of them, just on pure reputation and name only. Yeah. Although
he's
and
not
you
going
would
to be
agree.
short odds on against any of these guys, which is, I mean, from our perspective, happy days.
Yeah, so me and you would agree that if Cullen does make the semi-final, it would be interesting price play against Anderson or Gerwyn Price. Gerwyn Price is 4-6 to beat Anderson, which is probably about right, really. But is he still interested? I don't know. I just looked at it, Pineman, as if to think that Gerwyn Price could be not interested and not bothered and still beat Gary Anderson.
Could.
And then he's in the semi-final, and then he's looking at the table thinking, right, if I give it a go this week, it could be on. He could quite easily get to within 2 points of Peter Wright this week. If he goes on to win it. But like you say, Pineman, it's a long time since he's been there winning one of these. He's not been to a final. So he's only been to one final, Gerwyn Price, and that was in week 3.
Michael Smith's been to more finals than him in 13 weeks, which is remarkable, really, for all the stick we give Michael Smith about not winning one of these. He's shown more capability than Gerwyn Price to string 2 wins together. So I just really struggle with all the things we've said previously. You're absolutely right. He could beat Gary Anderson playing at 50%, but if it was him and Cullen in there in that semi-final, I just think Cullen has shown everything I like to see in somebody that's still got something to play for, but the odds are a bit against him, whereas Price is the polar opposite. I feel like he's maybe given up a little bit on this tournament, whereas Cullen, and let's not forget also, Joe Cullen's first Premier League, a little bit of not a surprise selection. He earned his chance, obviously, but the one that people would say if he didn't do well, he'd probably not get back in next year. So
got something to prove.
He's
and
got
to fight
really,
for.
he has, and I really like how this draw's come for him. I just think with the way that Wade is nearly there, and even on a going day, James Wade is beatable for Joe Cullen, and then I could really see him making the final here. I think he's value. I'd love to know his outright price if you've got him in front of you for the night. Not to put you on the spot there, but.
Yeah, you put me on the spot there, Pam, and I usually rely on you for that.
Well, look, I could give you some more waffle while you pull it up.
Well,
if you like.
I will waffle, because I will say about Cullen, he plays. He's got a chance this week, as we've described. But next week, Joe Cullen in the first round is due to play Gary Anderson.
I have already looked for it.
And in the second round, it will be Wade again. He's got to get past him this week. All right, so Joe Cullen really has got 2 weeks where he could go on and really cement that 4th place, because next week Gerwyn Price takes on fellow countryman Johnny Clayton in the first round, and even if he gets through that, which is unlikely, Van Gerwen awaits him in the second round. So Gerwyn Price will know this, and that's why we don't often agree, Pineman, but I would be with Cullen as well in this.
Now let me just add one further thing to that as well. The way the format works on week 16, you play the person in your bracket, so it's bracketed that first will play 8th, second will play 7th, etc. This is another tick in the box of Joe Cullen, because if Joe Cullen goes and does something in these next couple of weeks, he'll be in 5th, and who will he be playing in his first game? Peter Wright in 4th. He can knock Peter Wright out early and secure the points he potentially needs to leapfrog him. So while the table can look cut and dry here, it's anything but for me. That 4th, 5th dynamic is still really interesting, and I think I'm really talking myself into Joe Cullen being value here to get into that final 4.
You are, Pineman. You are. I can't find the odds for the outright for the night. It's not up yet. Cullen's 25-1 to win the whole thing, but that is a big leap from what we're discussing here.
It's a big leap, but there are people who would like to play it like, I'll have him in a 4-runner race at 25s. If you think he's going to get there, it might be worth a small stakes. But I think more on the night. I mean, I've headed to an unnamed supplier who I know has it direct up. So Joe Cullen to win this night outright is 7-1, and he's 11-4 to reach the final. The 11-4 may appeal more because then he doesn't have to overcome a Clayton or a Van Gerwen. We're saying that he's got a real chance of beating those quarterfinal and semi-final opponents. Well, 11-4 is a value price, surely.
Yeah, well, there you go. The value has been highlighted by Pineman yet again. Before we move on to what I would call any other business, Pineman, there's something we've not covered in terms of the Premier League discussion this year, and we've done a video every week. The finals night is in Berlin, which is excellent if you ask me. But yeah, that's on the 13th of June. So they play the last regular night, if you like, on the 26th of May. Then they have 3 weeks off there, and then the 13th of June, which is a Monday, believe it or not. But I think it'll be after the football season's finished, so you can see why. But yeah, what do we make of it? A, being on a Monday, and B, more importantly, being in Berlin. That's quite a big statement from the PDC.
Well, it is, and I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but I believe it was a little bit to do with COVID circumstances. I'm not 100% on this, so I may be making a fool of myself. I believe that there was an issue where the Berlin night had to be moved because they couldn't guarantee that there would be no COVID protocols in place because Germany's still a little bit behind where we are in the UK. So they ended up getting the finals night, which is traditionally in London or Newcastle, and Newcastle have been relegated to week 16, which I'm sure has not pleased people in Newcastle. But I actually think it's a fantastic thing here, because with all these crowd issues we're having, it's a perfect opportunity for Berlin to show us how it should be done. And I think they'll be thrilled in Germany to have something of this magnitude there, because we see them in the European tour, and Germany got a huge fan base of darts fans over there. I know we've got a lot of German viewers as well on doubles and trebles. They love the darts there, and it's great for them to have something like this, and they can really represent themselves on a good stage. And I would think, if you're the PDC, if you're Matt Porter, if you see that this Premier League finals night going to Germany and there's no crowd trouble and it's a really good, loud, sold out event, you look at going back there. I think you look at going back there every year, because this format, there's been problems with this competition for years. There's questions over the crowd, questions over the format, all that. If you have a really good finish in Germany, and we talk about growing the game and all that, it just makes sense to keep it there. So I think this is like a real audition for Germany to potentially nail themselves down to be regular hosts of huge events. And it does make you wonder whether in time we'll see the World Championship final maybe played in another country. I mean, I know there's a lot of traditionalism in the UK about wanting to, snooker's still at the Crucible, even though a lot of the players don't agree with it. And darts is at the Ali Pali, where we're seeing all these problems with the crowd deteriorating in quality every year. And I do think we kind of have to get away from this traditionalism a little bit in this country. If there's a better, more logical venue, and there's a better way of doing things, you've got to be progressive. And I would be very open-minded about them taking the World Final to a Germany or the Netherlands. Imagine if you're a Michael van Gerwen in the World Championships in the Netherlands. That's going to be brilliant, brilliant to see, and it'd be brilliant to see the dynamics. So, yeah, very interested time.
Yeah, fair play. And talking of Germany, over the weekend, the top 16 plus a host of what I would call random other qualifiers that I still don't understand, were in the European Darts Open in Leverkusen. A familiar story, because MVG was winning again, man. That's 3 European tours. He wins already this year for MVG. I think there's only been 4 events, and he's won 3 of them. Before I ask you what you made of it, I think it was on PDC TV and it wasn't on ITV or anything like that. Couple of takeouts from me. Nathan Aspinall is edging back to form. I like him. I'm on record. Definitely. I like him. He's still in some pain with the elbow, but as the recovery is ongoing and getting better, his form is definitely picking up. That's good to see. Big Dirk. Keep going on about him, man, to you privately. He has enjoyed these European Tour events.
Should have beat Van Gerwen.
He's playing some good stuff. Although it feels that he keeps coming up against Van Gerwen, as he did last weekend, and losing, unfortunately, as most people do. I'm definitely looking out for Big Dirk in the Players' Championship this week. I'm going to touch on that at the moment. And then finally from me, just MVG is quite simply in good form. We spend a lot of time talking about him on this channel, as most darts fans do. I just think it's very simple. He's in good form, there's no doubt. He averaged 113 against Gurney. He averaged 102 in the final against Dimitri. But more importantly, he's winning tournaments. They're proper tournaments as well. Last year, he had that Nordic Masters rubbish that he won and cried afterwards. They're not majors, but these are ranking tournaments. The major season is on the horizon. It's going to be a busy time for MVG and a busy time for doubles and trebles. But he is definitely back in form. And at the moment, he is the man to beat, partner.
Oh, yeah, he is, no doubt. Clayton really enjoying the Premier League format, and I think, to be honest, Clayton and MVG are probably on a level playing field, but MVG does seem to have got the taste for these Euro tours at the moment, and we've seen him dominate these in years gone by, and it must be pleasing for him to be recapturing some of that. He met Clayton in the last 16 of this one at the weekend, just gone, and beat him 6-4 in a tight encounter that could have gone either way, to be honest. And he had to dodge a bullet, as you often do in these kind of tournaments. Dirk van Dijvenbode should have beaten him 3-0 up in the quarterfinals. He really threw it away. Still had a couple of match starts after that. And yeah, Van Gerwen got through, and he did a real job on Luke Humphries, who blitzed Nathan Aspinall in a brilliant game where they both averaged way over 100. But you can't help but be impressed with Van Gerwen. And good to see Josh Rock and Scott Williams, two of our outsiders for every Players' Championship this year, getting into the last 16 of that event at the weekend and playing each other. Rock prevailed, but was well beaten by Dimitri Vandenberg in the quarterfinal. But great to see them both making strides. And two players we'll continue to watch very closely.
Well, as you mentioned there, Pyman, that brings on to our last point. The Players' Championship rounds 14 and 15 return this week in Wigan. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, Pyman. I've just literally opened the betting markets, and it appears to me there are no Premier League players in the betting. Which means,
yes.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise they playing on Thursday, but it's only in Sheffield. There's no reason why they couldn't play Wigan and Sheffield in the same week. But there's 4 or 5 different companies up on the betting, so I'm taking that as a given. Which means it is 14-1 the field, Pyman.
Luke, sorry, party, isn't it? Yeah.
Sorry, I've called that slightly wrong. There is some Premier League players in there, but I tell you who aren't in there. The usual suspects: Price, Clayton, MVG are not in there. Joe Cullen, Wade, and Michael Smith, I can see them in there. So correction there, but yeah, 14-1 the field, which is really big, really quite makes it very, very open. But yeah, we love betting on these, Pyman, and I'm just thinking, some of these players we wouldn't have seen for a while, or might not have even been on the European tour. People like Chizzy weren't even there at the weekend on the European tour. So yeah, is there any, for anyone that's watching this video before, say, 1 o'clock on Tuesday, the 10th of May, anyone stand out to you in the market for Players' Championship 14?
Yeah, definitely. Damon Heta, 20-1, 4 places. And if you're with the right company, you could even boost that. And that is outrageous, really, because he's been a 25-1 chance, even when you've had MVG, Clayton and Price in the running. He's won a couple of these this year, and he's always in the latter stages. He's always averaging 106, 107. He just loves these. He's an absolute master of this format now, Damon. And I just think you're guaranteed, if you were to go with him both days, you'll get a run to at least sort of quarters region. And you should be up on the 2 days. Not to put too much pressure on Damon's shoulders there, but he really is. He's brilliant at this format, and I just think that's the wrong price, especially if those aforementioned runners aren't turning up. No surprises, I'll be looking at the usual suspects, the like of Rock and Williams, who often outrun their odds. And
Rock 66.
It's like the Rock and Williams fan club, this channel. But if you know that somebody's constantly outrunning their odds, then you're gonna stick with them, aren't you? And we've seen it cop in the past with the likes of Ross Smith, where he was outrunning his odds for a while, and then you hit the nail with him. And ironically, Ross Smith out to 100-1. That could look big in this kind of field, to be honest. And Danny Jansen, another player who came from nowhere to win a tour title, has looked really good on the Euro Tour in recent weeks when we've seen him. He's 150-1 here. If I get stuck into that market at the bottom end, it's going to be carnage.
Yeah, so we covered all sorts this week. We've covered the Premier League as normal. We've covered players not interested, the location of the final, the European Darts Open, Michael Van Gerwen, and a couple of snippets there for the Players' Championships that we'll be getting right involved in Tuesday and Wednesday this week. And then obviously the Premier League returns on Thursday. So thanks for watching, and we'll be back with more darting and racing content very soon. Thank you.